I'm Shannon Martin. Tonight, students watching closely as thousands of University of Toronto workers could strike if a deal isn't reached by midnight tonight.
I'm a little bit worried just to how it'll affect assignments and stuff and just how classes will proceed.
The latest as talks continue this hour, and
that's where the real election tends to be fought and won.
Why Monday's federal by-election in Durham is one to watch, a key riding in Battleground 905, and reaction tonight after the Prime Minister cancels a Toronto event as pro-Palestinian demonstrators fill the streets outside.
This is CBC Late Night News.
Thanks for joining us. We'll have those stories in a moment. But first, a 27-year-old man is facing charges for allegedly bringing a nail gun to a demonstration near a synagogue in Thornhill. According to police, the event started as a pro-Palestinian rally. Then counter-protests sprung up in the same area. Several videos posted online show a man holding what appears to be a nail gun and becoming confrontational with pro-Palestinian protesters. Police confirmed to CBC News the man in the video is now facing charges including assault with a weapon. Officers also say at one point one of the victims told them the suspect discharged a nail gun. No injuries are being reported and the investigation continues tonight. Meantime, tensions also sparking outside an event last night in Toronto where Prime Minister Justin Trudeau was supposed to be hosting the Prime Minister of Italy. The event was called off as hundreds of pro-Palestinian protesters filled the street outside. JP Tasker takes us through what happened and has reaction.
Outside the Art Gallery of Ontario, about 400 pro-Palestinian protesters blocking the entrance. The demonstration forcing the cancellation of a planned reception for Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and his Italian counterpart, Giorgia Meloni.
You are complicit in the genocide! Your hands are red!
One demonstrator directing his anger at International Development Minister Ahmed Hussein.
You are complicit in the murder of my family members and my friends! Shame on you!
Police moved to control the crowd.
Stay back! Stay back!
Liberal MP Marco Mendicino was there, saying on social media, these thugs think they scored a win last night, but all they did was lose public support and embarrass themselves. Toronto police say no one was injured or arrested, but they are investigating. One protester spoke to CBC News. He would only give his first name, Kazan.
People want to show the Canadian government that it needs to end its complicity in this genocide. And yeah, cancelling the event, I think, is a success for today.
This former top Mountie says this protest could have spiraled out of control.
Agencies needed to call off the event to protect everyone and avoid some type of incident that could have diplomatic consequences.
This pro-Palestinian activist says anger with Ottawa has boiled over.
I think that it's coming off the backs of people feeling really helpless. What else can they do other than show their displeasure?
Well, I think it's genuinely more dangerous.
But this former top civil servant says increasingly angry protests targeting politicians are having an effect.
I know people that decided not to run again in 2021 or won't run again next year because of this work environment, largely because they don't want to put their families through it.
And it's expensive. The cost to protect the Prime Minister has surged. The latest figure suggests it's nearly $3 million a month. JP Tasker, CBC News, Ottawa.
Police in York Region are searching for suspects after a 16-year-old girl was shot in a parking lot last night. It happened in a plaza in Vaughan near Weston Road and Highway 7. Police say there was an unplanned car meet going on with more than 100 people. Officers say the 16-year-old was taken to hospital and is in stable condition. They're hoping to speak with witnesses and to see any dash cam footage. And a violent crash to show you from downtown Toronto. This is from 2 a.m. this morning. A man in his 20s suffered serious injuries. Meantime, the body of a man was discovered at a waste management facility. Now the homicide and missing persons unit has been called in. Officers were called Friday to the site when the body was found. They believe it was brought in there in a waste management truck. No other information is being released at this time. Police are working to determine who the man is and where the truck came from. Thousands of University of Toronto workers could be off the job starting Monday morning if a deal isn't reached by midnight. And that's got students wondering what that means for them. Anam Khan is standing by live for us. Anam, where do things stand right now?
Hey, Shannon. So, yes, about 8,000 workers at U of T may strike tomorrow, and that includes 7,000 academic workers, which includes contract instructors and teaching assistants. And about 1,000 of the workers are service workers, which includes caretakers and food service staff. And what the union wants is better wages, benefits, and access to free public transportation for its education contract workers. And now the union also said that the university did come forward with improved offers, but none were good enough to avert the strike. And I'm going to read you a statement from the union. They said a lot of what we're negotiating directly affects the quality of education and the university experience. We want workers to be able to focus on students, whether they're in cafeterias, residences, or classrooms, instead of long, stressful commutes and juggling multiple jobs.
Yet how this could impact students?
Yes, so I spoke to many students on campus today. They just seem left in the dark about how it's going to affect their grades. And the student union is very much in favor of the strike.
I think demands, for example, of like transit are very reasonable because most people are commuting, especially like the postgraduate students with, they're not able to live on campus, so they have to commute from elsewhere. I mean, it affects the education in the sense that certain things could be delayed, but in the long term, these working conditions for these TAs and library workers, etc., are the learning conditions of students.
I'm a little bit worried just like how it'll affect assignments and stuff, and just how classes will proceed, because there hasn't been too much information about that.
I'm just worried about our exams being weighted a lot because like if TAs go on strike, then tutorials and lab practical sessions are probably going to be canceled.
So the York Federation of Students echoed the same sentiments as the student union at U of T. About 3,000 workers at York University are on their second week of the strike. We reached out to the University of Toronto. We didn't hear back from them, but hey, there's still about like 45 minutes left at the bargaining table, and anything can happen in that time.
Yeah, and I'm really going down to the wire. If we get an update during the broadcast, we'll bring it to our viewers. Thanks, Anam. On Monday, voters in Durham will be heading to the ballot box to elect a new MP. Clara Pasica has been watching the race closely and joins us now. Clara, you've been spending a lot of time in the riding. What can you tell us?
Shannon, this riding is really interesting because you have North Oshawa. It also includes a large rural area, including many farms and Indigenous community. So as you can imagine, a lot of the issues that people are experiencing are similar to issues being felt right across the province. We're hearing people talk about homelessness. We're hearing people talk about not having access to enough healthcare workers. We're hearing people talk about that tension between immigration and housing, and of course, affordability. Here's what some voters had to say to us today.
I would say is affordability, especially when you consider housing affordability as well as just getting groceries, gas, whatever it may be these days. I know the pandemic hit a lot of people hard in businesses as well, and the government has done a lot to help with that, but I think there's still more work to be done.
In housing, let's face it, we don't have enough houses. Why do we keep doing immigration when we're putting a strain on our own people that are struggling with rent, food, everything else?
I also spoke with the regional chair, John Henry. He says that homelessness, addiction, and mental health issues have reached levels previously unseen in this region.
It is the biggest challenge we have in this country because everything flows from this. The impact in your community, the impact on families, the impact on individuals. There is on this issue and what we're doing right now, that we're putting Band-Aids on hemorrhages and there is really no light at the end of the tunnel.
He says that no parties are taking this issue seriously enough and that people are frustrated.
Clara, what are some of the things you're going to be watching for on election night?
Well, of course, anything can happen on Election Day, but the Conservatives have held this riding for the last 20 years, including most recently by the Conservative leader, Erin O'Toole. Now, he left politics last year, leaving this seat vacant, but the Conservatives would certainly like to hold on to this seat. I spoke with Erin O'Toole's previous campaign manager, Fred Delory, and he had this to say.
Over the last number of elections, the Conservatives have been really struggling in the GTA. They have very few seats. This is one of the few GTA seats. So it's very important. There's so many seats in that small geographic region. That's where the real election tends to be fought and won. So if there's any backwards movement for the Conservatives, that would obviously be very concerning. But at the same time, forward movement, if they get to that high 50s and break over 60% in support, that's a really good indicator that a blue wave could be forming in that region. I think by-elections are incredibly important barometers of where things really are. I think they're much more valuable than polls that we see out every week that have tiny numbers spread out across the country. Those are still very valuable and helpful. But the actual by-election, this is people going to the ballot box and casting a vote. It gives us a real indication of where things really are, and I think because there is this riding is pretty consistent in how it votes, 12% or so over the Conservatives' national average, makes me think that we'll have a really good indicator of how strong the Poilievre team is or isn't.
So it could be a good night for Jamil Jawani, but the other candidates will have something to say about that, including Liberal candidate Robert Rock, NDP candidate Chris Borja, and 6 other candidates. If you live in Durham, you can vote from 8:30 a.m. to 8:30 p.m. Monday.
Thanks, Clara. And you can watch Clara reporting live from Durham Monday night starting at 8:30 live on cbcnews.ca, GEM, and YouTube. We'll also be answering your questions about elections, shifting polls, and politics. You can email those questions to ask@cbc.ca.
We are wired to learn from our experiences, and that is what the Science Centre brings.
Toronto residents making their voices heard at a rally today aimed at stopping the Ontario Science Centre from being moved to Ontario Place and rebuilt at half the size. People say they're concerned the new location will be less accessible. Mayor Olivia Chow had this to say.
I'm working closely with the local residents and all the people that care about the Science Centre to maybe persuade the Premier not to move it, and if they have to move it, what can we put in there locally that's science-based?
She says the decision is up to the province. Premier Doug Ford has been criticized for the decision, but says the move could save Ontario more than $250 million. The city is talking to the province about adding some science programming to the existing space. Construction on the new waterfront location is set to start next year. We still have about 2 weeks or so to go before the official start to spring, but it's sounding like we could break yet another weather record tomorrow for warmth. Ward Anderson joins us now with the details. Hey, Ward.
Well, we just got out of the warmest February on record for Toronto, and March is starting off kind of interesting too, and definitely warmer. Right now we're sitting just above where we should be this time of year. It's usually right around that freezing mark. But what that leaves us with is a cold ground and warm, moist air that's coming up from the south. And that's bringing with it this fog. And we're going to be looking at that overnight going into Monday, especially around Hamilton and the Golden Horseshoe, because it does make those driving conditions treacherous. But the good news is the fog will be gone by morning, and then we're looking at warm temperatures throughout the day on Monday, higher than we're normally at, like I said, but then it's going into Tuesday where things get interesting. We've got the warmer temperatures. We're going to be plus 12 in the GTA alone with that warm air coming up, but it might feel like April, so therefore we're going to have showers that come with it as well. And that's what's coming through all day on Tuesday, and then it's going to cool off afterwards. We're looking at about 10 to 15 centimeters throughout most of the area. We cool off on Wednesday as it clears up again.
Okay, thanks, Ward. A longtime staple in Toronto's Yorkville neighborhood, Flo's Diner, is closing after 33 years in business.
I feel really sad. It's been emotional. Even though that if we knew that the moment started, we started to negotiate in July and it came, we always hope that it will stay because I love what I'm doing. My staff love doing. We are offering something really special where everybody knows everybody. Everybody has a good story about Flo's.
The location will be serving up its last meal by the end of the month. The owners say because of a dispute with their landlord, they were unable to renew their lease. CBC News reached out to the landlord for comment, but did not get a response in time for our broadcast tonight. Loyal diners say the loss for the neighborhood is a big one.
Been coming here for 20 years. I've lived on this block for 20 plus years, and this is really an unfortunate occurrence. A lot of the people that you see here, including that table and a couple other tables, are here every day. So this is pretty devastating to the neighborhood.
Flo's last day of service is March 24th. Big changes are being proposed for a Toronto neighborhood, but some residents are sharing concern. They're worried the new development won't meet their needs for things like affordable housing. Olivia Bowden has more from Thorncliffe Park.
There's housing coming in. We're hopeful that it will be rental housing because rent's gone really expensive here.
Community advocate Amir Sukera walks along Overlea Boulevard, where a sprawling new development is planned. He's glad the neighborhood is getting more housing, but there are concerns about whether it will be affordable or if new condos could price out current residents.
Where is everyone going to end up going? How far are they going to be from their families? And what kind of, is that going to disrupt what we have here, like that unity community that we have?
The proposed development is called a transit-oriented community. It's one of 14 planned for Toronto. TOCs are mixed-use communities that include residential, office, retail, and recreational space. And what makes them unique is that they are purposely built close to transit. Thorncliffe's TOC comes as the community gets a station on the Ontario line. And while Ontario has a vision of gleaming buildings with lots of space for pedestrians, some Thorncliffe residents say,
the concern is that decisions are being made and then the engagement is coming after the fact.
Ahmad Al-Sarraf was born in Thorncliffe and has never left. He now works in urban design. He says the community's biggest fear is lack of consultation. The province started holding town halls with residents just this week. But Al-Sarraf says Ontario has to build trust.
The transit-oriented community could solve a lot of community issues if the community is heard, rather than having a blanket project that is just generic and has some elements of mixed use and affordable housing.
And it's the specifics that residents should be asking for, says this expert.
We should be mindful of what could be potentially the unintended consequences.
Lewis says a neighborhood like Thorncliffe, where the majority are renters, could be vulnerable to gentrification. He says there needs to be guarantees the new buildings will make life better for the community.
We're putting in particular policies in place to protect some of the long-standing residents in these communities to ensure that rents aren't going to be exorbitantly increased.
When asked about the development, the province told CBC Toronto affordable housing options will be explored through negotiations with the city and the building partner. Construction will start after the Ontario Line station is built. But regardless, advocates like Sukera say Thorncliffe residents will have their voices heard.
This is a platform for them to voice their own opinion and have a say in what happens in their community and then demand what is rightfully theirs.
Olivia Bowden, CBC News, Toronto.
Still in the neighborhood where a food drive was held this weekend to help families facing food insecurity ahead of Ramadan.
Rent are so high in this neighborhood, so people find it very difficult to have meals on their table. So we are trying our best, whatever we can contribute to help them so that they will not be worried about food on their table during the month of Ramadan.
Organizers say last year they gave out 250 bags of food for families, but say this year it's been hard to match that number due to inflation and the rising cost of food. Ramadan officially begins next Sunday and ends in early April. We're heading into a quick break, but Ward is back with your full forecast next. Some dramatic moments caught on video to show you, showing the moment 3 people were rescued from Lake Simcoe after venturing onto unstable ice in an off-road vehicle. OPP releasing this video of that rescue, and they say thankfully this time it comes with a happy ending. Police are reminding everyone that no ice is safe, especially with the recent temperature swings right across the province. Ice conditions can vary. Very important reminder for everyone, and we're glad that everyone is okay. Ward is back with a look at our full forecast, talking about some spring-like temperatures and showers.
Well, it was, of course, a very warm February. We had some chilly temperatures over the weekend, but it's going to be warm again, at least a little bit, and it will be definitely warmer than usual. For the next few days, we're going to be experiencing some spring-like weather, and that includes showers with it across the province. But going into Monday morning, what we're focusing on is fog that is widespread across the province right now. That's because of the warmer, moist air coming up from the south and the natural cold ground that we've had because it's winter. So that can make driving treacherous, but it will be gone by Monday morning. And we're looking at warm temperatures and mostly clear skies through most of the province throughout Monday. But it's going into Tuesday where that spring-like temperature brings spring-like showers. We do have this system that's coming through, and it's going to make its way east across the province, affecting almost everybody all on Tuesday and then be gone by Wednesday. So we're talking about 10 to 15 centimeters through most areas, although more in higher elevations and over off the water. But then the thing we're focusing on as part of that is there is thunderstorm activity, that risk of thunder and lightning and thunderstorms, which is mostly going to affect Windsor as part of this system coming through. It's going to come through overnight Monday through there into Tuesday for the rest of us. And we'll be looking at those spring temperatures, 15 degrees, 21 on Monday in Windsor alone. So it's going to be quite the week. And then we're going to drop down closer to normal, but normally sitting still around 0 here. So again, it'll feel like spring already.
21 in Windsor, Ward. That's going to be a record breaker, you would think. Thanks so much for joining us, Ward. And that is our show for you tonight. Thanks so much for watching. We hope you have a great night.